It's quite remarkable how far technological advancement has come, even in the last decade. And since I'm turning 25 this month, I guess you could say that I'm experiencing the quarter-life crisis a bit. But just reminiscing on my life, I am starting to notice the palpable differences between the internet now, or culture now, and what I grew up with. And for example, I still love YouTube. It's one of the reasons I make YouTube videos, because it's just, I grew up with it, and it's just a fundamental part of, I don't know, my own personal entertainment. But back in, say, like 2006, in 2006 I was 8 years old. I would still use YouTube very similar to how I use it now, to watch videos and entertain myself. But YouTube was a much simpler website back then. Most videos were no longer than like 6 minutes, 7 minutes at most, and the editing wasn't that great. It was more like it was a very amateur community of people trying to figure out what the site was. And not only that, but unlike today, when you can just pick up your smartphone and look at YouTube or basically anything on the internet whenever you want. I mean, at that time, when I got off school, I watch YouTube for maybe an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, and when I got off the computer, that was the extent of my exposure to the internet on whatever day at that time. And so, like, I think of small things like that, and it truly is amazing how fast, how quickly things have changed, to the extent that, like, we cannot really fathom that speed at all. Another example is we had phones back then, of course, much like how we have phones now, but the iPhone was invented in 2007. It was released in 2007, and most people who had iPhones were the tech nerds, the geeks who really wanted to get their hands on the thing, because they probably knew to some extent that it was going to be the next revolutionary thing that our culture was going to experience. But for the rest of us plebs, including 2007 9-year-old me, we had our little Motorola Razors, where text messages were very difficult to write, and if you had to talk to somebody, like a long conversation with somebody, it wasn't on your phone, it usually wasn't on your computer, it was like an actual phone conversation, or you met them in person. So it was like still that like inconvenience, or what we would probably consider inconvenience now, that came from like the 90s, and that was just slowly disappearing, I guess. But we just, you went outside a lot more during that time, or at least I did. I had friends who I'd visit regularly on the weekend, and if we as a friend group went out and we met like a cute girl or something, a lot of us would like fight to get her attention, and it wouldn't be to get her Instagram handle. No, it was to get her digits, her phone number. And I mean, it all sounds really silly now, but the way that we date nowadays, with the exception of like the people who are very much into the red pill, people open up Tinder and they open up dating apps because there's no longer the same incentive to go outside and, I guess, experience the world as there was 10 years ago. And I find that sad. I find that incredibly sad. It's going outside and having a social life is sort of a no-brainer to, I guess, feeling fulfilled and having a healthy social circle, because without friends, well, you don't have a social circle. It's pretty self-explanatory. Nobody streamed movies. Nobody, could watch a YouTube video longer than 10 minutes. It was all so limited back then. And I think, like, with the overabundance of the internet, with the overabundance of technology that we have at our fingertips and our convenience has, I guess, since it's been somewhat gradual, it's not like this all happened over the course of 1 year, but rather like 10 years, 15 years, we have lost sight of the things that used to make us happy. And I'm old enough, I'm just barely old enough to remember what it was like back then, and when I reminisce on those times, I guess I just want to share that with you folks as well. It sounds a little cliche to ask that you all look at your phones less. That's not the point of this video, but rather it's just to get you guys thinking how technological advancement has caused us to become recluses and to no longer go outside and to take these conveniences for granted. It's almost impossible to imagine a world where nobody has a smartphone. When you go on to the, like, you have to really think about this now. If you have a public transport system that you use regularly, everyone sees people on their smartphones. And what was different about even 10 years ago was you were connected to the internet, but the technology was not powerful enough to keep you hooked for 24 hours a day. I mean, like, sometimes my iPhone will send me a notification reminding me that I've used my phone like 5 hours, something like six hours even, every day. And I go like, holy shit, really? Am I spending that much time in front of a screen? But as it happens, yeah, I do, and I imagine a lot of you guys do yourselves. So the convenience of the internet, and in too large of an amount, equals inconvenience. It creates societal problems for which many of us need to, but do not know how to, seek help. I'm rambling a little bit, but I wanted to get that off my chest because this is something that I really miss. I miss those days when I would, just remember how to live and exist. A comedian I really like mentioned how even when you're spending time with friends and one of your friends goes to the bathroom leaving you alone, we all have this itch to just reach for our phones or like just entertain ourselves because we have lost the ability to just exist, like just standing somewhere and observing the world. And according to the comedian, that's just being a person, and we've forgotten how to do that. And it's like we're transitioning from the real world into the artificial world. This is definitely not a trend that's going to stop anytime soon. And I wonder, like, are we going to look at now as a time that we really knew how to appreciate the real world? Will it be worse in 10 years? I suppose that you guys can let me know in your comment section. But I miss those 2000s days quite a lot.